Nicole Dumond, and I am with Clinton, the founder and president of Clinton and Reed. Thank you for joining me, Clinton.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to just kind of give you a little bit of background about Clinton. He was born in Washington, D.C. He went to Washington International School as a child, which is an American and French school, or an English and French school, so you were kind of always destined for France. You later moved to Germany around the age of 13, which is actually near the same base that my dad was based when we were growing up as well. And then eventually you found yourself at the end of your childhood living in Norway, which is where your mother's family is from.
Correct.
So after that, you went to get your Bachelor of Science at l'École Hôtellerie de Lausanne.
Almost. École Hôtelière de Lausanne, which is EHL for short.
I'm pretty sure that is exactly what I said. Which, during your school, you also went to Hong Kong, which I also lived at Hong Kong at the same time you lived in Hong
That's
Kong.
right.
We did not know each
Not
other.
yet.
Not yet. And then eventually to Paris, where you did some studies and then met your partner.
Correct.
Your French
Yeah.
partner. And then before starting at Clinton and Reed, Clinton worked in pastries. He worked in luxury boutiques. We also worked in fashion together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also started a career in real estate.
That is right.
And now, today, you are the founder and president of Clinton and Reed, which you just celebrated your 1-year anniversary. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Bravo.
We're very happy.
Excellent. So with your background in hospitality and having grown up in many different countries, as we've just discussed, you see relocation through a different lens. You know, how do you bridge that gap between moving somebody to Paris versus truly welcoming them into their new life in France, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the key difference here that I wasn't, let's say, something that I went out of, I didn't think this is what's going to make the difference, but it's my personality, and I think it is what's make the difference. There's a lot of relocation businesses out there, and I think for me, the most important part of this business is connecting with the people that we assist. I mean, we're going into deeply personal, life-changing events. Moving countries, often it's for work, it's for retirement, it's for fulfilling a dream. You can be moving your whole family. I mean, these are not little decisions that we make. And so I think having somebody who's going to go through that process with you, hand in hand, is so incredibly essential. It's not just a transaction. You know, we really try to follow through from A to Z and make sure that our clients are feeling reassured. There are also steps in that process that can be scary or overwhelming sometimes. And our whole job is to try to make that process easier and smoother. And yeah, I think that to answer the question, the main thing is to make sure our clients feel reassured through that process and feel confident that it's going to happen and done well.
Excellent. It sounds like through my connection with you, I know you have a connection with the concierge services. But what made you specifically choose to do concierge? Like, was there a specific hurdle that you had when you moved to France that made you want to start your own company?
I mean, so you talked about all the countries I've lived in. I've done my own visas, 6 times now, 5 times, having a U.S. passport. It was always a subject everywhere we went. And it's not just the visa, right? It's opening a bank account. It's finding out where you're supposed to live in a city you don't know at all. Maybe you've never visited. I went to Hong Kong, it was that way. I had literally never been in Asia, and I was moving to Hong Kong for work, and I had no idea where to go. So I was reaching out to people and asking for advice. It's making community. It's finding the apartment. There's so many aspects to it. I think that what made me go into this business was that experience. It's such a fundamental part of my life and growing up was the challenges of moving. And I always had 5 or 6 things that every time I moved I knew I needed to do when I got there. And it was sometimes the simple things like find your local grocery store, find the bakery, and then find maybe the grocery store that I could get some of the things from back home, whether that was Norway or the United States, products that were familiar to me. Because like when I went to Hong Kong and I went to the local grocery store, I didn't know what half the products were.
Right.
And while I would discover it with time, when I first hit the ground, I was like, I need to be able to have my basics just so that I can focus on the rest of it, and then I'll worry about integrating, you know. Some
That is, I have, when I also used to live in Shanghai, and when I first moved there, I thought that I was buying shampoo, but really I was buying conditioner. And one of my friends finally asked me why my hair was so oily. And then we discovered I was just washing my hair with conditioner.
Right.
You want to try to avoid those experiences.
Exactly.
I understand.
And that, I mean, like, that's the simple side of it, right?
Right.
Where the whole idea of me starting this business was to help you really get through the big hurdles, right? And those little ones, when you know what to do, they're easy, and we help our clients with that. But it's the big hurdles that get you through it and make that whole process so much easier. And then you can worry about if you're getting shampoo or hair conditioner. Maybe you didn't have the capacity to deal with it because you're dealing with so many other things, you know?
Yes, but my first carte de séjour picture for China looked terrible because I was so oily. So this is something that's really fascinating to me, as you have recently discovered, is that your family, your American family, used to help people move to Minnesota kind of at the time of the settlement of the United States. And I find that's really fascinating that just naturally you have been drawn to the same type of service that your family has done. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what your family did in Minnesota? And then how they were helping people move to Minnesota. And
Absolutely. In 2023, I went to Minnesota purely for I went for medical reasons. I was at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So it's outside, it's about, if I remember correctly, it's like an hour and a half outside of Minneapolis. And it's my first time visiting Minnesota, and I went just for that. And I had to spend 3 weeks there. And I was spending a lot of time, in between doctor's appointments and whatnot. And it was actually my husband who was like, you should work on your ancestry tree. And so I started doing that on my phone, and I realized, because I never knew my grandfather, who was named Clinton Reed, who I'm named after, because he passed away in 1985, so we never crossed paths, unfortunately. But I realized that he actually was born in Minnesota, and only like an hour and a half drive from where I was in the hospital. And I said, well, this weekend when I'm off from my appointments, I should head on up and like check out the town that he was born in. And so I took a car and we drove up there, and it was in Prescott, Wisconsin, to be precise. It's right on the Mississippi, so it's on the other side of the river is literally Minnesota, and it's, let's say, I don't know, maybe Minnesotans out there are going to disagree with me on this, but I would say it's the very far suburbs of Minneapolis. I think it was like an hour drive to get into the city. So I loved it so much because it was the quintessential Midwestern American town. So it's like you have one street, you have a big American flagpole, and you have like maybe, I don't know, 20 buildings on that street. And it was just so beautiful. And as somebody who left the U.S. when he was 13 and never lived in the Midwest, I really loved this Americana. So it was really cool. But we went on a Sunday, and I will never forget, there's a community museum that was open once a month, and it happens to be the one day that I'm there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, totally by chance. And so I go into this community museum, and I tell them, oh yeah, I'm here to discover a little bit about my family, and I want to visit the cemetery because then I can learn more about my family. And then, and the volunteer that was there, he was like, oh yeah, what's your family name? And I said the Reed family, and he looked at me like, oh, the Reed family, like we were famous. And I was like, yes, obviously. But I didn't expect him to get that reaction. And he proceeds to open a book that's the history of the town. I mean, it's like that thick. And it has like 5 or 6 generations of photos of not just the Reed family, but several branches of the Reed family in Prescott, Wisconsin. And as somebody who like moved so much in their life and didn't grow up so much outside of my immediate family, I didn't have a lot of family members I was in touch with regularly. That was really profound for me personally. And so that was very cool. We went to the cemetery, and I found the family plot, and there goes almost so it's 5 generations buried in that cemetery, and the 6th one fought in the American Revolution. To just give you an idea of how far back we're going.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's the family that moved to Minnesota from New York State. So it was just, again, for somebody who didn't have immediate family, this was such an incredibly personal moment for me. I laid flowers at all their graves. I took photos. I uploaded it to my ancestry tree, and it was just like a really important personal day. And then I went back to France after my time in Minnesota, and I started like digging into all of these members of the tree. Clinton Reed, I knew a little bit about. He was a musician. And then his father was Myron Reed. And Myron Reed, I learned, was a real estate agent, which is the business I had just started to throw myself into.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's such a cool connection. And I started learning more and more about what he did in his community. And it looks like he did a lot of, this is the 1880s, 1870s. It doesn't look, they didn't have relocation businesses in the way that we have them today, right?
Right.
But he was working with the church to help welcome new immigrants to the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin. And that really connected with me because I was already going down that road. So it felt very, very full circle to make that connection,
Yeah.
And it's definitely people I never had in touch with, but we're in the same business, doing it in our own way,
Yeah, absolutely. So what music do you play?
I did the trumpet, actually. Everyone in the Reed family seems to learn some type of musical instrument. It's like almost obligatory, so I did my part.
So will you be playing for us after?
Maybe if everyone's really, really kind with me, I might. I'm kidding. No, definitely not.
I have to leave early. And how did this discovery of your family's journey influence the creation of Clinton and Reed?
Yeah, so I was in real estate for a year, and I realized very quickly that my clients were in need of assistance with a lot more than just buying property or renting a property. They needed assistance with moving here, with setting up, getting a bank loan, opening bank accounts, all of the stuff that's related to coming to France and a relocation business. So I started doing it haphazardly on the side for my clients because they were asking for help. I'm bilingual. I speak French and English fluently. I can assist with all of that. I know both systems in the United States and France, so there's also that aspect. They're completely different systems.
Right.
And I mean that in a very broad sense, right?
Yeah, and you can, I think it's very helpful to understand, okay, this is how it works in the U.S., but this is how it works in France, to help explain, because you know both systems, okay, this is what you're used to, but this is now how it translates in France.
Exactly. And so this side business, or I wouldn't even call it business, I call it assistance, just grew into something much bigger. And I realized at one point in time, I'm going to need to make an actual business that I see as supportive for my time in real estate and for my clients, but also started noticing that my colleagues were like utilizing my services for their clients. And I said, hey, there's really something here.
Right.
And there's other relocation businesses, but a lot of them are not doing it exactly the same way I'm doing and don't have the same skill set. So that's where it started. And then I pulled in from my time in Minnesota as the inspiration behind creating the business.
Yeah, I mean, actually, when you had left from Minnesota, Clinton and Reed really wasn't even an idea, so this really inspired you.
No, yeah, truly, because I was doing things for friends and family and some clients, but it wasn't at all something, I thought it was just something to make a little extra on the side. It wasn't at all something I wanted to, the concept wasn't there yet.
Right.
Yeah, Minnesota was the catalyst, for sure.
Excellent. Your logo is striking. And it's quite symbolic.
Yeah.
I know this because I helped you work on the branding.
This is true.
I didn't do that beautiful branding. If I would have done it, it would look very different. But I did help. Can you talk to me about what this represents?
Yeah, for sure. So again, I always have stories to tell. I was in Champaign, probably when I started putting this whole concept together. So okay, I'm going to make a business. I need to come up with a name. I'm inspired by Minnesota, but I was coming up with much more generic, like corporate stuff. And I was visiting Champaign with my husband for our wedding anniversary, and it was actually him who brought up the idea. Said, like, inspired by the Champagne houses, there's all this legacy in the family and what they produce. Why don't you do the same thing for your family, but instead of Champagne, you're doing a relocation business? So this was the inspiration behind calling it Clinton and Reed. I didn't want to call it Clinton Reed because it's after my grandfather. It's me, and then it's the Reed legacy, know. And so that's where the logo comes in, because the griffin, the gold griffin on a blue background, is our family coat of arms. And I wanted to change it up a little bit for the logo of the company. And so we took a gold griffin on a blue background holding a branch of the Norwegian pine tree, which has nothing to do with my Norwegian connection, although I thought that was a nice little connection there anyways. But it's more...
Did you just lie and say that it is?
Yeah, okay. It's a connection with Norway,
Okay.
but it's also the official state tree of Minnesota.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
What a coincidence.
Right. Absolutely. But I really wanted to pay respect to our Minnesota roots. I mean, my time in Minnesota just made me realize that it's such a fundamental part of my family's story, and they played an important part in their own way, in their small little way, of Minnesota history. And yeah, I just loved it so much. So that's where the logo comes from, that's where the inspiration is, and that's where the name comes from. So, and you'll notice that everybody in our team wears a Clinton and Reed pin. So if you're ever working with one of our account managers or face to face with one of our team, you'll always see the pin on them.
Excellent. Toward the end of your time in Minnesota, there was another unexpected connection involving your family history. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the coolest part of the story. I mean, like, going to Minnesota and seeing the family graves, awesome, and making like the family history super cool. I took all those photos that I took of my time in the cemetery, and I put them up online. 3 months after I get back to France, I actually get contacted by somebody online telling me, asking me the question, "Are you the descendant of Alti Reed?" And I was like, "Yes."
Probably.
And I actually sent a photo of the grave with the flowers that I had laid to her, only taken 3 months prior. And she proceeds to tell me that she had found the scrapbook of Alti Reed that dates back to 1891. Wow. So Alti Reed is my great aunt. So it was my great grandfather's sister.
Okay.
Yeah. And she never had children. And the story goes is that, like, back in the 60s, they found this scrapbook in the closet of a Minneapolis public school. And they thought it was so historically interesting even back then that they kept it in the family.
Yeah.
And every Christmas they pull it out, and it was the super interesting thing at Christmas the kids would skim through, and it's about her travels. And then when at some point they wanted to give it off to a museum or find the family members, and that was 3 months after my trip.
No way.
So the connection is the timing is really incredible.
Yeah.
And so she sends it to me, and I get it here in Paris, and it's about 50 to 60 pages, approximately, if I recall correctly, of her trip to Europe. And it's specifically in Edinburgh, in London, and most importantly, in Paris.
Wow.
So the full circle there is crazy, and we actually have like cut outs of her dress from her ship, the ship she took across the Atlantic, menus from the hotels that she stayed at. I mean, really, really, really insane. We even have some receipts from Le Bon Marché, the department store here in Paris, from 1891. So I mean, this is before both the world wars. This is Paris. Really, we're in the Belle Époque. You know, we're Paris, I guess, in terms of culture and what we romanticize about the city.
Yeah.
We're in its prime right there. The Eiffel Tower is relatively new.
Yeah.
And she's traveling as a young woman with a group of people, Americans here in Paris, and it's just like, it's hard for me sometimes to not feel like there is a connection. I mean, it's 1891 that it's written, and it's only in 2023, 3 months after I visit Minnesota, and only because I put my visit up on Ancestry.com that I got connected with this scrapbook. And like, this could have been lost to history.
Yeah.
And now I'm reconnected with it. And it's just, yeah. I don't know what else to say other than that the coincidence seems insane. Some might say it wasn't a coincidence. I don't know what I feel, but I just felt like it was very moving for me and gives me a lot of purpose to the work that I do, and why. And I think that's what I want to like finish all of that by saying, is why this work is so deeply personal to me, and why having that personal connection with my clients is so important. Because I'm carrying on the family legacy. I want to provide a service to them that is as deeply connected as I feel. and that we're almost like building a community here. It's not just a relocation business. So yeah.
Great.
And that scrapbook we will be sharing soon, if it's not up online already when you're watching this, but it will be on our website, so you can scroll through it, about Alti Reed's trip to Europe.
Excellent. Well, maybe one day you will have a scrapbook to share with your family.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah. And Clinton, I have really enjoyed talking to you. Well, I always enjoy talking to you, and I love hearing your stories. I love hearing about inspiration. You also really live a full life here in Paris. You're, if it's an American event or if it's a Parisian or a French event, I always really enjoy hearing about these. And you also travel quite a lot. So when you told me that you were going to be writing a newsletter, I got quite excited. So can you tell me a little bit more about this newsletter that Clinton reading?
Absolutely. So, I mean, our idea with this newsletter is that we want it to be much more interactive than just a body of text. For example, our interview today, we're going to be reproducing things like this for our newsletter. So today it was about the Clinton and Reed story, but our next one is going to be, who knows, about buying real estate in France, or it can be about a big cultural event in the country, or it can be with an artist or a chef or an expert in their industry that concerns anyone who's living in this country, and things to better understand it, to appreciate it. We're going to try to do a lot of different topics. We are going to have also, of course, some articles that are written by either our team or by some of these experts in the industry, so there'll be practical things in there as well. And will be a little mix of other things in there. So, the lifestyle side, I think, is a really important part of what we do at Clinton & Reed. So we'll be launching some experiences, is what we're calling it, later this year, which is all about discovering different regions of France, or very unique, curated experiences, which is where the name comes from. There'll always be some real estate highlights, because that's a big part of what we do for our clients, is helping connect them with property or with the right agents, so that we can get them the right apartment for their stay here in France. And I'm really excited to share that we are building exclusive relationships with some different partners that will be able to provide unique events for the Clinton and Reed followership. And then most importantly, we're always going to have a Q&A in our newsletters, so that if you guys have specific questions, you can ask our team, and we'll do our very best to respond to them. We want to make sure that we are bringing content that is of interest and of importance and of use to our viewership. So yeah, right.
And there's always a relevant question to ask.
Certainly is.
When you're relocating.
So if you haven't signed up for our newsletter yet, make sure you do so.
And where can they sign up for the newsletter?
So if you go onto our website, clintonreed.com, you will see on the drop-down bar there is a newsletter page, and there you will have an area where you can sign up.
Excellent. Thank you.